So tell me, if you had to do something to impress your crush, how would you do it? Would you take a bad boy route, or would you play it safe? And how would that affect your relationship? For me personally, I have chosen the first option. No, I didn't get drunk or got laid. It might sound lame, but it has something to do with media. Allow me to explain. I'm a pretty wholesome guy. I always go to church and do what's right. I am also very good with children. So why did I choose this first option? 2 words. Necessity evil. My friends would find some ways to get me out of my comfort zone, as this would help me build more confidence. Especially when it comes to this cute girl I always pass up. I've always wanted to date her for some time now, but I knew it'd be too soon, so I had to take some baby steps. Eventually, we did get to know each other. Hey, confidence surely paid off. But that's not important, because what this story is about is something to do with her favorite thing. More specifically, a piece of media, Lilo and Stitch. I know what you're thinking. Why is a 19-year-old boy talking about a series where a little girl goes on adventures with a blue alien dog? I'll get this out of the way. I've never seen it, but she has. Lilo and Stitch is something she would watch religiously, and would have a lot of merchandise around it. But as far as I'm concerned, I was indifferent to it. As a kid, I wasn't that big of a Disney fan. I was more of a Nicktoons and Cartoon Network kid, and I'm still not to this day, especially with the recent films they pump out nowadays. So when I told her I'd never seen it, she told me everything about it, what it was about, what the characters were, everything. And that's where my story comes in. So you want to know what I did to impress her, right? Well, it all started when I got the courage to ask her out. In particular, we thought of watching an animated movie. We both agree on one thing. We should watch something more wholesome. That's not to say we didn't think of watching anything radical. I mean, I take animation seriously, but I'm not as crazy about it as my friends are. And both of us agree, animation has dropped in quality. Seriously, what is with that piece of shit Velma show? Anyway, since I had never seen Lilo and Stitch, we decided that should be perfect for our date. After I went home, I decided to surprise her myself. I thought, well, if I'm going to impress her, I might want to get familiar with the characters. After all, the film is just a driving force. I turned on my laptop and began taking notes on the characters. A somewhat risky idea came into my mind. I should show her something she hasn't seen from that series. And what better way to show her something she hasn't seen from Lilo and Stitch than lost media content? After discovering there were no lost media content for Lilo and Stitch on the Lost Media Wiki, I decided to go search for some. I searched high and low for any scrap content, eventually getting nowhere. With the exception of deleted scenes for the original draft of the first film, an anime adaptation that fans apparently hate, and a Chinese series that was a mixed bag by said fans, I was stumped. This caused me to use the Wayback Machine, until finally I found a leadway. A college campus website, more specifically the special education article. Why would something Lilo and Stitch related be on a college website? Not wanting to waste time to think, I looked through the article. There was a tab underneath the physical and mental health tab that read, Lilo and Stitch PSAs. Interesting. I downloaded the file and viewed my treasures. One of them was a full video entitled Obscure Lilo and Stitch Video.evi, Teachers and Students Only. I took one of my flash drives and copied the video. There were also extra content in the folder. I'll get to them later. The next night, I was getting ready for our date. We were both dressed casually and her father was outside. He was looking at me skeptically. I mean, what father wouldn't be worried about his daughter? We drove into a small mess hall where a small projector was placed in the middle. She showed me all 4 movies, but as sly as a fox, I whipped out the flash drive. She asked me when I got there, and I told her that this was a special, never-before-seen installment. I made this gloating speech about how brave I was to go past the censors. She was quite impressed. However, her common sense kicked in and asked me if I got in trouble. So far, no. I haven't. Another thought came into my head. How has the campus not gotten into trouble? Because I don't think Disney is that generous with their intellectual properties. Then again, no company is that generous. Despite that, we figured it wouldn't be a big deal. As long as our night goes well, we shouldn't have anything to worry about. I placed the flash drive on the projector and we sat close together, pressing play on the remote in the process. Now, let's get into the video. I made sure to bring my notes with me when it came time to watch it, so despite my lack of knowledge for the franchise, I was able to point out some details. It opened with a Hawaiian landscape, with a small Hawaiian house in the middle. The camera zoomed in said house and it fades into our child character's room. "Today's the big day, Stitch," Lilo declared. "Turkey Barappa," Stitch replied. "We've been practicing all night for the tiki building contest. We're bound to win this year," Lilo said. They then went downstairs to get breakfast with Jumper and Pleakley. As they did, Nani came down looking completely exhausted. This made all 4 of them exchange concerned looks. Nani then headed for the phone, coughing as she does. "Nani, you okay?" Leo asked. As I looked over my notes, what we've noticed from the movie stuck out to us. We could tell there was something about Leo's voice. She sounded forced, like she didn't want to be here, even though the animation wasn't the quality of the animated series. Maybe that's how she's supposed to sound like. Who knows? Nani also sounded off. She sounded hasty and even legitimately sick. "Mr. Jameson, I'm gonna have to call in sick today. Thanks for understanding." Nani hung up and tried to go back upstairs, albeit fumbling around. Leo then goes up to her to feel her forehead. "Careful, little girl. Bigger girl might be contagious. Could lose fingertips." This made my day chuckle a little as both Leo and Nani looked at him unamused. "Oh, yikes, Nani! You're burning up," said Lilo. She then redirected Nani to the couch. There, Nani slumped down and coughed again. I guess I won't be able to attend this year's tiki building contest. "Sorry, baby," said Nani. "But you promised," Leo said, still in this forced way. "We will attend. We will make sure little girl crushes enemies," Jumba and Pleakley both said. They also sounded forced and uninterested. What the hell? Were the voice actors blackmailed to record this video? "Well, I hope you get better soon," Leo said, and both her and Stitch went outside. I took all these differences as the franchise being normal, because like I said before, I never grew up with the series. Now it's time to get into the main meat of this movie. The rest of the movie played out as much as I expected. Leo and her classmates were preparing for the event, with one of them, who I guess you already know, mocked her tiki sculpture. Now we expected Lilo to make some kind of rebuttal towards her, but she didn't. Instead, she was too busy thinking about Nani's condition, to the point where she couldn't pay attention. The contest began, and everyone showed their work. Leo starts out first, even though the cheeky sculpture was never finished. My cheeky sculpture has to do with smoking and how it can affect you. The top cheeky is when you first start smoking. The second one is the effect starting to kick in. And the third and fourth one is where you're left under the influence. We both exchanged very confusing looks. As far as my crush is concerned, this was something the series has never done before. I mean, they tackle pollution, but not smoking. She says there wouldn't be any reason to do it. The teacher looked skeptical and then passes on to the other students. Now, since Nani wasn't around and Leo didn't get to finish her tiki, they ended up losing. Leo and Stitch just stood there in defeat. They then went up to jump obliquely and drove back home. We should probably go by the store. The best way to cure sickness is with spicy soup, Leo said, and they did just that. The next scene fades in and we see Nani on the sofa. She was tossing and turning and sometimes wheezing, almost like she's running low on oxygen. This causes her to stay awake most of the time. Then suddenly she eyed toward her handbag. Nani looked compelled at first, but then gave a somewhat crooked grin. I'll be honest, we weren't sure what was going on here. However, as if the film read our minds, Nani took the handbag and went outside. She opened it, revealing a pack of cigarettes. Then she lit one of them via a lighter and started smoking. She also began to act very loopy, probably under the effects now. Both of our jaws were on the floor at that point. Why would Nani succumb to this? Did the writer forget about her character? I thought she was a role model. The scene cuts to the front house as the family arrives. Nani noticed this and rushed back inside. The foursome went inside and saw Nani in her position. She was looking at them very worriedly. Lilo was the first to notice Nani's slightly different posture. Were you trying to do something? Leo asked. Oh, I was, just trying to get some cold medicine. Nani lied. Well, we just brought you some spicy canned soup. That's okay, Leo said. Nani thanked her, and the foursome were about to go into their rooms. Before they could, Nani let out a nasty cough, and a big puff of smoke came out. She quickly covered her mouth as it got the attention of everyone. Did smoke came out of your mouth? Asked Lilo, very alarmed. Nani then tried to act normal, but before she could, she froze in place. She began wheezing and holding one hand on her chest. She then fell to the ground, convulsing. This caused all three of them to run up to her, except for Stitch, who was looking at her handbag, with the cigarette pack sticking out. After Nani was stabilized, she confessed her addiction. This part I could remember, but I think she said something about David getting her involved. I guess that's it. We in the group, as you would expect, were horrified with it. More so rightfully appalled. Hey, who wouldn't? After this scene, we see Nani trying to recover her addiction. She still feels nauseated at times, so it was hard for her to pay attention. But she does manage to regain her senses every once in a while. Then one day, she was at the drugstore looking for Vaporeon and Varicline. We saw her pick up 2 or 3 bottles of each. She then spotted more cigarette packs. Nani only glared at them and walked away from them. Until without warning, Nani lifted her head and looked around. At first I thought she heard something, but it seems like she was smelling something. Nani then said, "Hey, does anyone smell smoke? I don't have a cigarette with me. Who's smoking?" It was then that the customers at the drugstore started to scream as more and more smoke came along. Suddenly the room was glowing bright orange and yellow. Sweat started pouring down on Nani's forehead. Then, going back to Earth, she realized what was going on. Nani immediately busted down the emergency door and gestured everyone to go through here. From the corner of her eye, a little boy was cowering in the corner. She ran to the little boy and tried to get him out as fast as possible. Meanwhile, Lilo saw what was going on via the news and made no hesitation. She got the whole family together and they immediately set out to the burning drugstore. Once there, they saw a large crowd of people outside, while smoke was still coming out of the building. Stitch immediately jumped into action, punching a hole in the wall, thus letting the 2 inside. Nani could be seen with the little boy in her arms, clearly in a weakened state. Pieces of her clothes were caught on fire. She was going to yell at Lilo, but then noticed the hole Stitch made. She then jumps out of the rubble she was previously standing on and raced to said hole. But due to her current condition, she collapsed at the last minute. Now Nani is left unconscious. Both Lilo and Stitch then rush up to her and pulled her out. They then lay the unconscious Nani on the sidewalk. The screen then cuts to black, and we were shown with a title card in the bookmark font that read "Later." The screen cuts to a waiting room in the hospital. All 4 family members are there, with David joining in. They were all upset, with Lilo outranking everyone. She was crying, but unlike the rest of the voice acting, this doesn't sound fake. It sounded like an actual kid crying. A doctor came into the waiting room. She was a completely new character. Then both Lilo and Jumba stood up and faced her. "Well, doctor, is Nani okay?" said Lilo, still very upset. "I have made special cure for a bigger girl," Jumba said, holding a big oil drum of a particular substance. No thanks. I don't think she would want that." Nani was originally suffering from asthma, but it soon turned into an overdose before the fire started. She's also having breathing troubles and can barely talk. This is due to an overwhelming amount of smoke she had during the fire. I suggest not interacting with her in any way, said the doctor. Can we go see her?" Lilo whispered. "Of course," the doctor answered. "Just be mindful, she is not in the best condition." The doctor leads them to Nani's hospital room. Once they arrived, she opened the door and we see Nani lying in a hospital bed, motionless. Her eyes were pink and slightly bloodshot. Her skin was a palish brown with ash marks all over, and her clothes was almost burnt to a crisp. She was also hooked up to a heart monitor and a mask giving her oxygen. Leo walked out first with a very heartbroken look, which in itself is understandable. I mean, her sister got burned alive. Everyone else followed soon. Before they got any closer, the doctor stopped them. They can only look at the burnt figure that was once Nani. "Now, You said something about Nani overdosing? Leo asked with so much concern in her voice. We saw on her records that she was taking 2 to 3 to even 4 bupropion pills a day, sometimes even asking for the highest of dosage. She must be desperate to recover from her addiction. Or worse. Just as she said that, the door opened again. It was Cobra Bubbles, the CIA agent / social worker. I've heard Nani has gone into smoking. What a pity. I'm afraid to say, but I'm gonna have to take Lilo away. If she can't control her addiction, what chance would she have? This made everyone shocked, including Nani, who apparently heard what was going to happen. Cobra proceeded to walk up to Lilo and take her away. That is, until David stepped in between them, pushing him back in protest. "You better not lay a finger on her," David shouted. "I have no choice. You know why smokers can't have children?" Just as they were arguing, Nani started convulsing again, shaking rapidly on the bed, as if she wants to intervene. The heart monitor was beeping rapidly, causing everyone to scream in terror. Before the doctor could do anything, the heart monitor flatlined. Nani stopped shaking and the whole room went silent, aside from the haunting sound flatline. The doctor then broke the silence. I'm sorry. We lost her. The news was so unbearable, it caused her heart to beat abnormally. And she did not have the strength to handle it. Lilo and Stitch then began to cry, with Jumba, Pleakley, David, and Cobra looking very somber. A little logo appeared on the bottom right corner of the screen, and then faded to black. We couldn't believe our eyes. Nani died? There is no way this will get past Disney Animation Studios nowadays. Nor would it be made by Chris Sanders. It has to be a sick joke, almost as someone made this in Clip Studio Paint using the reference model from the internet. I went out to the projector and yanked the flash drive out. Now with these bullshit stories, you would expect us to be scared or disturbed. But no, we were just disappointed. We ended up watching the actual movies and called it a night there. However, I remember that there were extra content in the folder I downloaded. So I went to see what else was in there, and I am glad my crush was not in the room, because she would have gouged her eyes out upon seeing this. It was a slideshow of screenshots for a possible sequel to the video. There were also concept arts too, but each of these screenshots would be more messed up than the last, though they have one thing in common. Nani is always the one committing these disturbing acts. I decided to turn off my laptop for the night. The next morning, I uploaded the video on the Lost Media Wiki, including some of the screenshots for the sequel. Mostly the most disturbing ones, which consist of Nani beating Lilo, to her getting drunk, to her even filing her little sister. What the fuck? This still doesn't make sense. Why would Nani be painted in a negative light here? This isn't like the character I took notes on, let alone see in action from the actual movies. And then I went back to the ending shot of the video. I wanted to know, what was with the logo? It's certainly not Disney's, that's for sure. I took a little detour to the Lilo and Stitch wiki and learned that the series was aired on Disney Channel. This was making my head hurt. I need some clear answers. So you want to know what I did next? I used the Wayback Machine on both the college campus website and the Disney Channel website. Here's what I found. The logo belonged to a small group of college students who would go around school systems and show their programs around the late 80s and early 90s. They were part of the Winners Don't Do Drugs campaign, but they weren't afraid to tackle other subjects. Think of them as Dare, but cheaper. Anyways, Disney then began to notice this group and allow them to use their intellectual properties on one condition. They would only use properties shown on Toon Disney, but they also allow them to use spin-offs. This means that if an intellectual property has an animated series, they can only use that particular part of the property, and Lilo and Stitch happens to be one of them. Now this is where the campus website comes in. Apparently in 2008, the group was shut down and sued by Disney due to an investigation. This investigation suspected that someone in the group was going around showing some demented and even perverted PSAs, using Lilo and Stitch as the vehicle. But they also mentioned that these PSAs were much darker than what they were bargained to make. They would range from child abuse to domestic violence to, in this case, drug abuse, and would have Nani be either the victim, the villain, or sometimes both. And they also said that these PSAs were in the possession of a few girls from the Deep Web, meaning he must have traded them in exchange for some kind of one-night stand. But why Nani? Why would he pick this character out of anyone else? Taking a small detour to the group's website, and it turns out that this person, who I will not say by name because I don't want to give this dirty fucker any publicity, was never part of the group. In fact, the person who made these PSAs was a left-winged rapist who hated any kind of parental figure and was placed in that group for 7 years of community service. Soon enough, though, he took this group to his advantage and made everyone, including women and little girls, both act in and produce these perverted movies, or they would be tortured if they refused. Now I know why the voice acting felt forced, and that also explains Nani's odd behavior. Due to him sexualizing women and hating parental figures, Nani was his main target, and he used her to express his lust for women and spit in the face of parental figures. And since he was a pervert, he couldn't get a girlfriend, and trading these PSAs was his only way of getting any kind of relationship. He was immediately arrested when the group manager called him out on it, and all of his PSAs were confiscated by the local police department. However, some of these PSAs were left behind and were shown to students on campus, digitally, not physically, letting this be a lesson to anyone who would dare misuse the format or the group. Now I know why I was on the website in the first place. After explaining all of this to my crush, we felt relieved. Oh, and about my crush, she's doing fine, though she could visualize some key moments in that video. No, she didn't ditch her childhood icon, but it does manage to get into her head sometimes. I wound up watching the original series with her as I felt responsible for what happened. We've grown close together because of that, so I guess it isn't all bad, but I wish I'd taken a different approach. And let me know, would you do something like this?